So I'm looking to do a bit of mould making. The main reason for it is I want to duplicate these original High Elf shields from a Spearman unit. I've only got 5 of this particular design and I want to have a lot more. And rather than going onto eBay and paying a premium for them, I'm just going to try and do some mould making and cast some. So I've done a bit of mould making in the past for scratch building or kit bashing projects. Some of those sorts of moulds I've made are like this, where you mix up a silicone and pour that on top of some plastic parts. So for example, there's a piece here. It's pretty useful for various kit bashing type projects. So you set out a number of parts, pour your silicone, and then you end up with something like this. So you can cast some resin, usually a 2-part resin, and duplicate the bits that you need. And you can take that a bit further and do larger 2-part moulds for bigger pieces. But those are a bit more involved, and for something small like this, maybe try something different. The other method, and I think the one that we're going to use here, is by using a silicone putty to create a 2-part mould again. We need to do 2-part moulds. So this is a 1-part mould because all of these pieces can have a flat back. The shields, on the other hand, have got a concave surface on the back side of them. So we need a 2-part mould. So previous experiments with these sorts of things, using a 2-part silicone putty to try and cast some of these original skeleton torsos, where I don't have quite enough. I've got the legs and the heads and the arms and things, but I don't have enough torsos, so I had tried making a 2-part mould for those. And in terms of a product to use to cast with, I've tried a couple of things. This Tamiya Putty here, it's called Basic Type. And this is much more like a paste. You can squeeze out the tube, so it's pretty convenient to use. And the result as a cast piece is not bad. You're never going to get great down the sides where the 2 moulds come together. There's always going to be a bit of misalignment and needing to tidy things up with a knife. But you have to kind of balance that up against trying to find them elsewhere, like I say on eBay or whatever. The good thing with this type of paste is that it squeezes out when you put the 2 halves of the mould together, and you get this really easy to break away flash. But that maybe just gives an indication as to how brittle this stuff could be if you're not careful with it. The other option here with the kind of white stuff is this Milliput, which is another 2-part product, and an epoxy type product. But it's a much tougher, stronger material to work with, and forcing it into the moulds can be quite tricky. But again, it does cast pretty well, but you get that flashing to deal with, or the mould line, and because you've been kind of forcing it together, you maybe don't get quite as good a result, where the 2 moulds are becoming a bit misaligned. So for these shields, I think I am going to try this using this kind of method. The 2-part silicone putty I'm using is a Green Stuff World product, and you basically scoop out equal parts, mix them together, and then create your mould. Other options could be to use the blue stuff, which is a thermoplastic type material, meaning that you can dunk this in hot water and it will become soft, and then you can use it to mould round things. It's handy for smaller moulds that for a bit of convenience, but as I say, we'll give this silicone putty a go here. In terms of the shields, I've got 6 different designs. So for the purposes of the demonstration, I think we'll try and put them all into one mould setup. Got a couple of pieces of foam card here, just so we've got something nice and flat to squeeze the mould out onto. So I'll scoop out some of this. So I've got roughly equal parts there, and it's just a case of working that together. Okay, so that's looking quite well mixed now. What I'm trying to do is just spread that out into a kind of rough rectangular shape. Don't want to do it too thin because you want the mould to have some kind of body to it. That, and then we'll take our shield designs. Now it's probably 6 1/2 dozen which way around we do this in terms of the front face and the back. I'm just going to press those in, just do them side by side like this. Just try to judge it to get all 6 on. When you press them in, I'm just trying not to move them around too much, just try and move in a single kind of vertical motion. And then to help align the moulds, just with the end of a brush, just running out of room slightly. So what I've done there is just added in some holes or dimples into the mould, that when we put on the second half, material will go into those holes and help just align the mould when we put it together when casting. So that's the setup now. Don't want to mess around with it too much, just want to make sure these are embedded in. So we'll leave it like that, let the silicone go off, and then we can do the second half. Okay, one of the advantages of using this stuff is it's really quick to work with. 10 minutes roughly drying time. So the mould now, you can't leave a fingernail mark in it now. It's kind of gone off completely. The other thing to remember though is that you have a very short amount of time to work with the product before it does go off. So you really only have a couple of minutes or so. So I'm going to use the remainder of what I've got here to mix up the next half. Okay, so it looks like I've got plenty to use here. And you just want to make sure there's no marbling left between the two colours. And I'm going to use a nice sort of smooth side. And I'm just going to sit a little bit of weight on top of that, just to keep it nice and flat and held together while it cures. And that's it. We'll come back in another 15 minutes or so and check out the result. Okay, so just having a quick look at the mould. Was it successful? No, probably not. A couple issues with it. The mould has torn there. Possibly didn't give the first half long enough to cure before squeezing on the second half and they've kind of bonded a bit. Normally I find this stuff comes apart really well. Did I mix it up enough? Maybe not. And it had also been sitting in the tin. You know, I had a bit left in the tin there for quite a while. Whether that had an effect on it or not, I don't know, but I thought we'd still take a quick look at the result of it. I think it'd be unfair to just kind of chuck it in the bin and start again secretly. Probably better just have a look at the results. So you can see in general, it's picked up the patterns really well. But on closer inspection, you know, you will get evidence of these little air bubbles that were trapped between the shield and the silicone, and just bits here and there that haven't worked too well. But what I've been trying to do is just create a few test pieces using this Tamiya Putty, and if I'm being honest, the results are not good enough for what I want to do. So there's the original plastic shield, and there's a couple of examples that I've tried casting. I think that if you're doing kit bashing and you just want to make some sort of terrain piece, some sort of model, you're maybe building something using various bits of plastic and there's a piece on there that you want to replicate, I think this is ideal, because if there is any little discrepancies or air bubbles, they're just part of the weathering, and they'll look fine. But when compared to the original, it's pretty tough. There is a bit of shrinkage on this stuff as it dries, so you just get that slight hint of a percentage drop. And you could maybe get away with them, but I think after spending so much time painting the miniatures, I don't know if I want to compromise on this. But you can see in this one I've used a bit more material, so it's got a chance to squeeze out in the mould, and this kind of flashing stuff just breaks off really easily. And in the face of it, it's not a bad replication of the original, but you can see that the gemstone in this case, on this particular one, didn't quite form right, with maybe an air bubble just being trapped. So you'd have to weigh up the pros and cons. In terms of how strong they are, this was another one that I did where there's a bad air bubble there and the mould wasn't very good. If I just break that in half and say, you know, you can snap them. So if you needed something stronger, you might have to move to the milliput. The reason I like this stuff is it's just so convenient. So I've got one here. If I take that one out. Okay, I mean that one's worked pretty good. I used a bit more. And the advantage of this stuff is just how easy it is to work with in terms of sanding it away. If I take this one that's had a bit more time out in the air to dry off, if you just use a couple of sanding sticks, kind of coarse one there and then a finer one, you can smooth it off. So it's just it's good to use these firm sanding sticks, because it gives you a nice straight edge to work with. And you know, this material really does sand well. You can remove a lot of it quickly, so you have to be quite careful. And again, you're weighing up how much work you're putting into making these compared to the prices on an eBay lot. But with very little finishing work with the sanding sticks, can you make an acceptable reproduction? I don't know. For me, it's not going to be good enough for this use. I kind of want them to be better than that, but for pretty much any other use, as I say, kit bashing, or you just want to replicate some parts which can be can have little discrepancies on them, I think it'd be fine. Just to show you the process for doing this with this Tamiya, get rid of any debris from the last one, and then you can just squeeze this stuff. It dries very quickly, it dries really quick, so it's just a case of squeezing some into the mould. Be a bit wasteful with it, and then get the top on as quick as you can, like that, and then I'm just going to weigh it down to help squeeze that together, then leave that to dry. So all in all, mixed results. Not sure if that's going to be useful or not. You get better ones and worse ones. Maybe the sensible thing to do with making a mould is just, use as many of the originals that you have all in the same mould, and then hopefully you get one or two that come out pretty good a time. Might be more sensible doing it that way. I think just to carry on with this is I'll grab some of this blue stuff, some moulds that I've made, reactivate it with hot water, and then we'll just cast a couple with this.